welcome. So, of course, in today's episode of Steelfur Speaks, I am at least, eagerly waiting the incoming spoilers for Tales of Aria, but we have been blessed with 3 spoilers, just due to a marketing stunt organized with 3 content creators in the US, where they did an ultimate pit fight battle with random heroes, and the winner got to spoil the hero, and people got to spoil a different card, and that was awesome. I didn't get a chance to watch the game, but I watched a clip of it, and I watched, obviously found out the results. Unsurprisingly, Azalea and Kano did not win. I think Prism won in the end, which, I mean, if you draft Prism and Azalea and Kano, what really do you sort of expect in that kind of environment? So I'm really excited, and I've got the first preview up on the screen, which is our first new hero. And I have to say, I am really excited by the representation of this. The guesses for Aria about the fact that we would get heroes that could play 2 elements and there would be 3 elements total were kind of figured out. And there was a very strong guess that that was what we were going to get in the previews. And that was kind of based on the fact that, and I'll show you in a minute, that basically you can see it in this border here, that there's kind of 3 main areas of Aria that are focused on in the story. You have Candleloft, which is nature-based. You have Lightning in Vault Haven, and you have Frost in Candlehold, Vault Haven, and Isenloft. And Isenloft was always going to be ice because we've seen that photo, but also, and it's always going to be Guardian, and there's always going to be an Ice Guardian, because we've already seen the Helm of Isen's Peak. We've already seen a lot of hints that Guardians are tied to Isenloft. Rangers coming from Vault Haven. No idea that was going to happen, but once we saw the lightning on the bow and the Aurora Borealis, it did kind of make sense that Lexi was going to be a lightning ranger from Vault Haven. And then a nature class, I'm guessing, just due to pack art and the alphabet and things, that it's going to be a wizard or a warden. Wardens are very, very strongly hinted at in the Aria lore as being from Candlehold, so that could very be a Warden of Candlehold. Another new class for this game, which is a topic for another video. But let's turn, so I want to focus in this video today on what the previews we've got so far tell us about the potential playstyles of each of these heroes, right? Every hero is going to have 2 essences, probably. We know there are only 3 new heroes in the set. From these essences, they can fill their deck with either ice or lightning cards, and there also are general elemental cards. And I think it's pretty clear, if you read Lexi's ability, that actually what we're getting here is a hard fork between 2 different design archetypes. One which is a wide, aggressive ranger deck with lightning getting go again, and one which is a Frostbite. I'm assuming Frostbite does something controlling because you give it to your opponent. Maybe it makes their next attack cost 1 more, or do 1 less damage, or takes 1 instance of go again from the first card they play, or something really disruptive. If it's consistent to play, it's not going to do something like take away go again, but it might reduce the damage of the next attack or something like that. That's quite controlling, but not, so dominant as just completely, make every arrow a Spinal Crush, for example. Especially because it's not conditional on hit, which tells us that it's going to be a weak effect. Something equivalent to, say, Prism Shield, where it gives the next attack their opponent does -1, but, also has that blow itself up when it gets triggered effect. So -1 attack, +1 cost, both seem to be pretty good guesses on that front. And obviously go again is a big thing. Now, every hero, so far-ish, has go wide and go tall strategies, right? You've got Bravo, you can take him aggressive. You can take Dorinthia wide with more little attacks. Katsu could theoretically just double up on, just playing things like Plunder Run, Pummels, Razor's Reflex. There are ways to make heroes go wide with buffs. Chain can go tall or wide. And really what we're seeing that here is crystallized on this ice card, both of those strategies within the elemental themes themselves. And that kind of tells us that lightning is going to be wide, and ice is going to be tall. And that kind of gives us a guidance for the set. You know, if ice is wide, if lightning is wide, ice is tall, then earth is defensive, right? Is that how it works? If ice is control, then earth is defensive. And it kind of gives us an idea as well about the other two heroes that aren't spoiled yet. One of which is probably going to be an earth ice guardian that has frostbite tokens and also does something probably where they get a temporary shield or they get buffs to their equipment's defense or something like that, where they're buffing them with earth magic. It's going to be something cool. Let's not speculate too much on that. So really what we're seeing here is that crystallization of the wide versus tall strategy and the promise of hybridization. But as we know, not always do we get hybridization working effectively, right? Sometimes we get hybridization, it works. Sometimes, and you can sideboard in and out in CC. Sometimes you just have to focus on aggro or control, or you're weaker at doing either of the two. So it'll be very interesting to see whether Lexi ends up being all ice, all lightning, depending on the meta, or a mix of ice and lightning, depending on the meta. And that's going to be quite interesting to see. However, we do have a spoiler of her first weapon, which is Shiver. Now, this weapon is amazing. Ice Bow, is it the one from the photograph? It is not. That's just worth noting. So this bow, although it looks like it could have a lightning string, is not the weapon she is wielding in the photograph. That's important to know, because if we look at the equipment that Lexi is wearing, there is some potential here for this equipment to make it into the set in terms of a pair of gloves, that is these epic frost braces, or this chest piece, which could also be Lexi's chest piece that she wears that enables some other ability. But this bow with the floating pieces is a lightning aspected bow, and this is a frost aspected weapon, and it's the token. Now we know from Monarch that every hero got a majestic weapon to go along with the token and create options. This one is ice. There may be a majestic electric bow looking like this in the set, and in fact I would expect it, because then you have two choices of weapon, one for more control options and one for more aggressive options. Now, if we consider, I just need to bring something up. If we consider Ranger as a control deck, we see that Shiver actually fits very well into that. As an instant, you can load this on your opponent's turn, which means you can pay for effects on your opponent's turn, like a defense reaction, like a powerful defense reaction that might be ice-based, which we might see in this set, similar to Guardians of the Shadow Realm, or something like that, or Soul Shield. I'm thinking a 2-for-6 that gives your opponent a Frostbite token, for example. That would be really useful and thematic. And if you pitch a blue to pay for that, you can also load your arsenal with an arrow without paying this cost on your turn. And then when your turn rolls around, you could shoot that arrow, pitching another blue. If it's a 1-cost arrow, you could then load another arrow from your hand and then shoot another arrow, right? And in that way, if you defended with 1 card from Arsenal, pitched a blue, you could then do 2 attacks on the return, the second of which having Dominate or +1. So you begin to see how, by controlling the turn, this bow is going to create options for a tall Lexi deck to swing in and hit people on her own terms. Defend, load an arrow on your turn if I need to. That flexibility is going to be huge. And then swing in as and when I need to, creating options for myself via the fact that this is instant. So this is actually really good. And you might be thinking, why would I use this as an instant if I don't do this effect? And the fact is, it's just going to be more useful sometimes to put an arrow into your arsenal than it is going to be to give it this bonus. It's going to be worth having one there and being able to do 2 shots in a turn. And that's really what this enables. And also, paying attention to the wording here, face up into an empty arsenal zone you control. If you do, choose one. There's been a lot of speculation about Ranger getting another Arsenal slot. It's in the rules. It's in it's written on this card. Command and Conquer says any Arsenal card. The fact is, you can probably bet that Ranger is going to have some way of putting arrows into another Arsenal slot, which is where this arrow is going to be super useful. Now, there is a big question as to whether or not that is going to be a generic equipment or an elemental piece of equipment. Personally, I lean towards elemental because it makes sense to have an elemental quiver where you store your frost arrows and your bolts of lightning, right? That you're going to actually conjure while you're conjuring them. So really, you know, the difference between a frost arrow and another frost arrow is just how you make it. So maybe you just store it in a gem or in a crystal or in something less tangible than an actual real quiver until you're ready to actually fire it. And then you're going to use Shiver to put that arrow into that slot and then fire it from that slot as well. And that also means, as a controlled defensive deck, you could spend a few turns defending and putting arrows in the arsenal, and then use Lexi's ability, if some of them are lightning, to give them go again and clear them all out. Or to create multiple frostbite tokens to slow down your opponent even more, or further limit the effects of their turn. Just while I'm here, just remember a shout out. So this one was spoiled by DM Armada. You probably don't need me to let you know what his channel is, but you can see his logo in the bottom right. This one was spoiled by Red Zone Rogue, which is, of course, another Flesh and Blood YouTube channel. There are lots of us, so, you know, I'm happy if you want to give me your support, please, you know, give me a like and subscribe, but also please do like and subscribe all of the other channels as well, because it helps everyone else out. And, of course, if you are being bombarded with notifications, you can set up your personal notification settings so you're not seeing every video that people publish, but maybe. So the important things otherwise to note about this card, obviously it specifies lightning or elemental. We've seen lightning actions. It also lets us know there will be generic elemental attack actions that can be played by anyone and may take on certain traits based on the hero's essences you have, which would be really cool. I would love like a generic elemental attack action that, say, gets +2 attack if you've got a lightning essence, and has an on-hit effect if you have an ice essence, +1 defense if your hero has an earth essence, for example. Because that sort of thing will be really fun in drafting, because you can pick that as a generic at the start of the game, and then it works for whatever hero you've got later on. So that kind of like split between these 3 different elemental actions is actually really nice and really well designed. So I'm really keen to see how that plays out when we get these cards. This itself, I mean, the art is gorgeous. I keep wanting to say, does this art scream wizard? But I don't think it does. It's kind of like an elemental manifestation. And we know Aria is full of these giant elemental beings. So unfortunately, this may not imply wizard. But it does at least create quite an interesting option in terms of how they're going to position stuff in the set. And, you know, we're kind of trying to figure out exactly what, you know, the other classes were going to be with their elemental essences. So, you know, how do you best represent someone from Candleloft? Is it, you know, a bard that can do nature and electric magic? Is it a shapeshifter who can... Well, the shapeshifter doesn't make sense, because where would the lightning come in? Is it a wizard who does earth and lightning magic? That would be really cool and make a ton of sense, because a lot of people are expecting like the wizard to be like ice wizard or lightning wizard, but Lexi has filled that slot, whereas going with like an earth lightning class would actually make a lot more sense lore-wise. Otherwise, Shaman is also something that we see prevalent in that area of Aria, and lightning and earth would also make sense for Shaman, so that could be quite interesting too. I think there's so much more left to explore in this set, and I'm really, really, really fascinated by what we've seen so far. The one thing I want to take away, so a guy, I think his name is John something. Let me bring up his name so I don't steal his posting without giving him credit. In the main Discord, in the... That's the main Flesh and Blood Discord. So his name is John Alexander. And he was posting about this. He's really keen on Aria's spoilers. And he's kind of basically said the same thing that I've said, but put a lot more... He's basically put it all into a nice chart. So I'm going to give him full credit for that. If he has a channel or something, he should ping me and let me know. Otherwise, I'm just gonna, use this to illustrate better what I was saying without me having to worry about it. So we see the Guardian firmly within ice, Blitz Pack Design 1, has a hammer, has the shoulder fur, the hammer is held by like a male gloved gauntlet. Lexi's design we see here, fluidic, lightning and Celtic circles. Lightning card border is yellow to purple, which we see over here. And then we have this staff. I personally think that's a spearhead myself, rather than a staff. Bush greenery, nature hero, right? Lexi is a ranger. Alphabetically, we get Lexi Ranger in the middle. Then we get Guardian first. And then the last slot, Wizard, Shaman, Essence of Lightning. Wizards obviously already have a lot of lightning in their effects already. So it would make sense to support that with an expansion into the Earth nature area. And that would be really, really cool. As a wizard player, I played Kano for a long time. That would genuinely be really, really cool. And it would branch wizard away from just being burn, burn, burn into maybe mixing arcane damage and attacks. But it needs to be in a more sensible way. In a more sensible way than, say, Kano, where Kano doesn't work as a hybrid deck because essentially you need to load your deck full of attack actions or you'll miss when you use Kano's ability. So, unlike Kano, who needs to have a deck density of non-attack actions, a hybrid deck where it utilizes lightning and earth effects, as well as the ability to, say, add arcane damage in, we could see a hero that said something like, whenever you increase the arcane damage of your spell, add that as attack to your next attack, or something like that. Go again. And then that would give you a way to mix in a lot of the old wizard effects that bump arcane damage into your attack rotation without being too much like Runeblade. And also, if you think this lightning thing probably implies we're not getting a wizard because it's a buff to an attack action, I will say that counter to this idea, you have to remember that a lot of the shadow cards are good with Chain or with Levia. A lot of the light cards work with Bolton or with Prism. Seeing this one card doesn't tell us what lightning is entirely going to be like. There could be flexibility in there for arcane damage. And in fact, I'm almost certain there will be arcane damage just because of what lightning is. It would seem very silly to not have lightning also dealing arcane damage. The difference, you're wondering now what the difference is going to be between a Runeblade and a Lightning Earth Wizard, right? Who does a bit of arcane damage but also attacks. Well, the difference is primarily going to be that Runeblade is capped at 2 arcane damage, which you see on cards like Vexing Malice, whereas Wizard was obviously going to have cards that go higher than 2 arcane. So you could very much easily see like a similar card to Vexing Malice that does 0, 1, 2 attack, but does, 1, 2, and 3 arcane, or 3, 2, and 1 arcane, for example. And you could see that coming out of a Earth Lightning Wizard in a way that would enable that hybrid gameplay in a way that Kano never has. Also, what you could see, for example, is something that gives your next non-attack action go again. So you can play something like Ether Flare into one of these attacks that has arcane and physical damage, right? You could get that sort of hybrid style where they have a way of giving non-attack actions go again, which then enables you to mix these together. So there's a lot still to be charted. I don't want to talk about it too much now because it is just rampant speculation. But I've kind of talked about the main things I want to, which is like what we've seen so far and how that implies the decks are going to get built for Lexi and for the elemental heroes that we've seen so far, and what that kind of means for, I guess, the future of the game. I mean, if we get a really strong control ice-based hero, and 2 of them, in fact, because there's going to be a Guardian as well, that is going to effectively probably start to slow down a lot of the aggression that's currently in the game. If, for example, you take, all of our aggro heroes, Chain, Katsu, Dash is going aggro, everyone's going aggro, and they run into a good ranger that can actually run Sleep Dart and Remorseless, suddenly you end up with quite a strong aggro Silver Bullet, which might actually end up pushing decks more mid-range, right? And you'll have a lot more time to set up potions and set up combos and do interesting things to push damage through rather than just race. And if Lexi is controlling enough and if Frostbite is good enough, we may actually see Chain having to slow down too. Now, Chain is good in the late game, but he plays that fine-tuned balance between I'm going to kill you and I'm going to fatigue myself if the games start going longer. So that's going to be very interesting. You'll see a lot of Chain players maybe switching to playing more defense reactions, building up to bigger turns on the Riftbind with the Go Again, with the Seeping Shadows, and generally playing in a much slower way that guarantees them the damage. And that's everything that's on the table based on what we've seen so far. If Lexi, based on her ice ability and her ice bow, gets a lot more control-y and defensive, we could see that effectively pushing the meta away from aggro. And it may not go back. So that will be really interesting. Obviously, I'm going to leave you all to speculate now. Again, as always, if you made it this far in the video, thanks a lot for watching. I'm giving this a try. Let's put it that way. People seem to like to listen to me talk, so I'm giving it a try, recording regular videos and seeing if I can produce content that people like. Because I love talking about this game, and obviously if I can talk about this game and people will listen to me, then I am happy and overjoyed, and hopefully we can all get better at this game together. So thanks a lot for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.